The third episode of Season 2 of The Owl House, Echoes of the Past, was one of the best in the entire series. It's tense, it's suspenseful, it's quite dramatic. The build-up is simply masterful. We land on a mist-covered island that Lilith says should not even exist. It is full of these ancient crumbling ruins, and this very thick jungle-like foliage. It honestly feels like another world. Whether King's story has merit is the central mystery of this episode, and this is a mystery the episode has no interest in resolving in a simple binary yes or no fashion. There's too much evidence on both sides to allow any firm conclusions to be reached for most of the episode, and by the end we learn that none of our characters has a complete view of the actual truth. They only know part of the story. Yes, it is true that King is not actually the king of demons, but his father most likely was the king of demons, thus making him the prince of demons. His story is not made up, it's not some bizarre fantasy, it has actual basis in reality, arguably more so than King himself suspects. So let us consider King, let us consider King's father, and let us consider the world of the Boiling Isles before its takeover by Emperor Balos. Now, King says that he wants to find his father, but I believe at this point it is safe enough to assume that his father is dead. That is why King does not see his father or anyone else upon emerging from his egg. He just sees this barren, desolate castle. The only creature he has to protect him is this strange flesh monster. Balos invaded this castle and killed King's father and King's father's entire retinue, but King himself was kept safe because he was in the nursery and only King's presence unlocks the door to the nursery. Thus, King did not die, but everyone else did. There's a small window in the ceiling of the nursery, and from that window a vine comes down, a symbol of renewal and fertility and resurgence, an appropriate symbol for a nursery. Beneath the vine there are eggshells, and it's reasonable to assume that these are from King's egg that were left there when he hatched. We see King as a very small demon, much smaller than he even is now, struggling in this unfamiliar, lonely world, trying to make sense of it. Presumably, the flesh monster provides him sustenance so he doesn't die, even though he starts off as a little baby who can't defend himself. But the flesh monster cannot provide true companionship and true tenderness and true information about the world around King, so King is left clueless until Ida appears. All King has are these murals, faded murals, but still very beautiful and very intimidating, in this castle of King's father, and King takes these murals to be of himself. He adopts the idea that he is this powerful king of demons, so he doesn't have to confront how he's lonely and scared and anxious about the world. Ida tolerated King's fantasies, and then Luce did. They never suspected that there might actually be something to these grandiloquent presumptions. Now, think about the closing credits of Season 2 of The Owl House. It's pretty clear that the large demon we see opposite King in those credits is not King himself, but rather his father, the actual king of demons. I'm happy to say that I got this one right. In my last analysis about King, I mostly discussed the possibility that this large demon could be King, but I also left open the possibility that it might be a relative of King that King wants to emulate and live up to. This was a theory I did not see really anyone in the fandom talking about before this episode, so I am going to take credit for this and say that I got this one right. I'm going to take credit for predicting that. Here's a few clips of that other video, if you haven't seen it, talking about the possible meanings behind that final outro sequence featuring King and the huge demon. Or perhaps it's one of King's relatives. Perhaps someone who was very close to him was an actual king of demons and had that majestic, powerful form, and King lost them for some reason and wants to try and carry on that legacy. I admit I have absolutely no evidence supporting this whatsoever, but it's a nice idea. But enough bragging, I don't want to seem arrogant. The question we need to ask ourselves is, why was King's father overthrown by Balos? Was it just a world domination thing? Possibly. Lilith says that there was no king of the demons before Balos, that he was the one who united all the demons. Now, in the face of what we've seen in this episode, I don't think there's a lot of evidence to support the claim that there was no king of the demons before Balos. So perhaps it's likely that Balos was the one who destroyed the history of the Boiling Isles. He tried to destroy the history of this world before himself. That seems like a very evil dictator thing to do. And if he did so, however, it would have to be a pretty comprehensive mission, because Lilith is a huge history dork. As we see in this episode, she is fascinated by the ruins, but she has no real conception of these ruins. She has no framework from which to comprehend them. She's just left kind of clueless. She doesn't know what to make of these engravings. They predate anything she knows. She doesn't know anything about King's father, and she certainly didn't know that King was the prince of demons, the son of this powerful overlord demon. So what else does she not know? What else do we not know? What secrets of the Boiling Isles lie beneath the official history? What's being kept from us? What's being kept from the characters? Also, what do we think about King now that we know that his father was, in fact, this all-powerful overlord, this extremely fearsome demon? Would it be possible for King to attain that kind of power in the future? Is King so weak because he's just a kid, or because Balos has somehow zapped all magic in this world outside himself to kind of make it less powerful? Who knows? And if King does have the capacity to gain that sort of power in the future, do we want to see him gain that sort of power? King's delusions of grandeur were funny instead of horrifying because he had no power to attain that sort of authority, it seemed. It was just a bunch of childlike fantasies. But if King actually could attain that sort of fearsome power, the situation changes demonstrably. If King's father really was this magic-wielding overlord, we should maybe consider the possibility that he was not completely kind and friendly. Now, I'm not saying he was an evil ruler necessarily, and I'm certainly not saying he deserved to be overthrown by Balos, but he might not have been a perfect leader or father. I'm thinking of Thunder Avazandum in The Dragon Prince, which is also a great show. You should watch it if you haven't. I guarantee you'll like it. Thunder Avazandum is the father of the titular Dragon Prince, Ozymandias. Avazandum did not deserve to be killed so brutally, but he was also a brutal and harsh ruler who did not take kindly to anyone who opposed him. It's possible King's father could have been a ruler along those lines. But even if that was the case, I do not believe there is reason to doubt King himself. King has a good heart and a kind spirit, even though he hides it beneath his delusions of grandeur. He cares for those around him, and he respects those who took him in when he had no one. When Ida found him, he was alone aside from the minimal protection offered by the flesh soldier. Ida had no reason to adopt him. She was on the run. She was in a very tenuous situation, and she thought he was just a weird dog, but she took him in anyway. She demonstrated an excess of kindness toward him, just like she did toward the human Luce and her good-intentioned but misguided sister Lilith. She didn't have to, but she did, and that matters. Found families in the Owl House are constructed through repeated acts of uncommon kindness. That is at the heart of the show, and that is at the heart of King's character. He's not a bad demon by any means, regardless of whether or not his father was a good ruler. And we should take that into consideration as the show progresses. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today in this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching The Owl House. Season 2 is off to an utterly fantastic start. These first 3 episodes of Season 2 have been amazing. I can't wait to see where the show goes from here. Can't wait to see what it does with King and his history with his father and Balos. There's so much we haven't seen, and the show has been so excellent at weaving these mysteries, so can't wait to see where it goes from here. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. That I promise you. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.